Hello Looker. The Garten of Banban game has a very complicated plot, which is revealed with each new part of the game, telling and showing us about the tragedy that happened in kindergarten. But are you sure that this is only related to children? Now you will find out everything in the full history of Garten of Banban. From the very beginning of the game, we are informed that we are playing for a parent who is looking for his child, and that his search is a matter of time. We see footage from a surveillance camera in one of the classrooms of the Banban kindergarten. When you click on the clock, time passes. From 10 to 11 o'clock, we hear children having fun in kindergarten. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it becomes quiet and a hammer and planks appear. At 13 o'clock, the door opens and a note appears on the desktop. At 14 o'clock, a blood stain appears on the wall behind the door. At 15 o'clock, the lights go out. It's obvious that something terrible has happened. We start in the lobby of the Banban kindergarten and do not see any of the staff or any children. All 6 kindergarten characters are depicted on the wall. Jumbo Josh, the green monster, and his slogan, "Eat vegetables and fruits to become as strong as me." Bombolina is a white monster with a pink bow, and her slogan is "Kindness is free, so throw it everywhere." Banban is a red monster with festive hats on his ears, and his slogan is "To share means to care." Your pancreas is mine. Therefore, it is already clear to Sloan that something strange is happening in kindergarten. The bird Sawdust, its slogan, "Laughter is the best medicine, so smile." Captain Fiddles, the monster with fangs, and his slogan "Yuga Booga Booga Yuga." Stinger Flynn is an orange jellyfish, and his slogan "Many hands allows you to help more people." We find a key at the reception desk, which we use to open the maintenance room. In this room, we find a drone and a remote control from it, but there are no batteries in it. Next to it is a note left by one of the children. "Dear mother, I will hide in the room, but I have to fight the monster. This is the only chance Claire will like." There is a cafeteria opposite the room, where we will find batteries for the drone control panel. Now we can control a drone that will help us in moving deeper into kindergarten. With the help of a drone, we open the passage to the kindergarten and see the sawdust bird looking at us, then it runs away. We find ourselves in a room where the children were taught something. On the board it says the end is already here, and in the corner of disobedience, there is a button behind the glass. We pass on and get into a large children's room, in which there is a sawdust bird with its mouth open. And the inscription, "Sawdust bird is very hungry, with a feed of 6 eggs and get a prize." The passage to the adjacent ball court is boarded up with boards, which we saw at the very beginning of the game on camera. After collecting 6 eggs and feeding Sawdust, we get a yellow card, which activate a previously unavailable button. With the help of a drone, we break the glass and click on it. A safe opens in the corner of the room, in which there is a hammer and a note in which it is written, "Distracting attention in an hour." As you remember, we saw on the camera that traces of blood appeared after 13 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the note hints to us that some kind of plan was planned, but it is not yet clear for what. Promo code and link in the description. With a hammer, we break the boards and go through a new room, where we see the bloody footprints of the sawdust bird on the wall, coming from a dark abyss. With the help of a lift, we move to the other side of the room, where we find a hidden egg. If we go back to the playroom and feed it to the sawdust bird, we will get a new purple key card, thanks to which we can open a previously inaccessible door in the corridor at the entrance to the kindergarten. Opening the door, we see the same room from the surveillance camera at the beginning of the game. On the desktop, we find a boarding ticket for a plane in the name of a certain Beverly Mason, who flies from Montreal to Madrid on October 23, 2016. If we scan the code, we will get the text and trillis. Translated, it's very painful. Returning to the room where we found the hidden egg, we see a puzzle on the wall, which is solved by specifying the skin color of each of the monsters. The safe opens, which contains a new key card and a note written by one of the children. "I'm alone. I want to play with a bird in the abyss, but everyone abandoned me. Everyone was having fun without me. Miss Mason saw me, but she left. I'm scared because the abyss is loud, and my friends are screaming in it, but the bird is funny." Judging by this note, it can be assumed that it was written by a child who was left upstairs, and all the other children were dragged into the hole of this room. Apparently, the sawdust bird did it. Also mentioned is Miss Mason, the plane ticket we found earlier. Apparently, the words "it really hurts" means that she didn't have any choice, and she left the children with monsters in kindergarten and tried to fly to another city. But it is not known whether it turned out, since we now have the ticket. Turning around, we see the sawdust bird approaching us. We urgently need to activate the button with the help of a drone, which opens a passage for us on wooden plates, so that we can escape from pursuit. Having moved to the other side, we press the disconnect button, and the plate is removed. Sawdust falls from the bird into the abyss. If we go back to the cafeteria located at the very beginning of the game, we will find there an audio cassette that was left especially for us. On this tape, we hear such sounds. Which confirms that the children are still in kindergarten. But we understand from the screams that they are in danger. We open the last closed door and get into the room where we find another plane ticket, which belongs to Usman Adam, who also flies from Montreal to Madrid on the same date as Miss Mason. And also, judging by the seat, they are flying together as partners in a conspiracy. And apparently this confirms that events are happening because of them. If we scan the code, we will see a website that says, "Congratulations. You are trapped in Jumbo Josh's living room. This is where Jumbo Josh and his siblings come to relax. Uninvited guests are usually turned into mush, but you seem to have put a lot of effort into getting to this place. Therefore, you can stay here as long as you want. Turn on relaxing music, eat cake, and make friends." And the name of the site page reads Darkness. Under the table, we find a button that activates another one, and with the help of a drone, we press it, then another button. And a secret passage appears in the floor, namely an elevator that will allow us to descend into the abyss to the children. During the descent, we are attacked by Jumbo Josh, who breaks the elevator and drags us down at high speed. We regain consciousness after the fall and see that the elevator has crushed Jumbo Josh. We take the key card and our remote control of the drone, but its antenna is broken. Opening the door, we go out to a large space and realize that a huge complex has been built under the kindergarten, in which we will surely find out the answers to all questions. We find a new key card and a note, apparently from an employee involved in what is happening. The note says that everyone has disappeared somewhere, and he hears a whistle from the abyss, which is getting louder and louder. He even noticed that someone was watching him. He was told that everything thrown into the abyss dies, but it turned out to be a lie and a warning that everyone who reads this note should leave and forget about the existence of this place. We are heading to the communications sector, and we see the inscription "Spider exists" at the entrance, and it is approaching. When we turn around, we notice that someone is watching us, but we move on. In the main room of the communications sector, we see a new drawing on the wall, and the inscription "Meet the Family." The characters already known to us have been joined by new ones, namely the yellow snail, Slow Celine, and her slogan, "I may be slow, but I will quickly come to the rescue." Sheriff Totster and his slogan, "Treat others the way you would like to be treated, with respect." And the same blue spider that is already watching us, his name is Nap Nap. And you might have noticed that this name is Banban, but backwards. And his slogan is "It's okay not to have friends and be unhappy like me." While studying the room, someone suddenly contacts us on the speakerphone and asks us to help him get out of the security room. He can't open the door because he needs a key card, which he doesn't have. The card is in the maintenance room, but before we get there, he opens the next room to us, where we find a new antenna for our remote control. Now we can control the drone. When we get to the maintenance room, we find a key card, as well as a videotape on which the Banban is lying in the middle of a dark room, and does not move. On the way back to the communication room, a spider starts hunting for us on the nut, but we manage to escape from it. We open the room where the one who was talking to us is stuck, but it turns out to be empty, and there is only one note on the table in which it is written, "If you read this fast enough, you can escape. I plan to attack you and hit you very hard while you were distracted by this note." Banban runs up to us from behind and hits us. It turns out that he was talking to us on the speakerphone. He steals all our key cards and says that he is preparing for some kind of operation. We lose consciousness and wake up in the bowels of the medical room. The remote control and the drone remain with us, so we manage to escape. We get to the key card behind the glass and call the elevator. As the elevator descends, we notice a countdown left on the boxes, which tells about the creation of a Banban, which was nicknamed the Devil. Banban was experiment number 6, created from human DNA and an unknown substance Givanium. From the note, we learn that these experiments reproduce memories belonging to a person whose DNA was used in their creation. They retain the same level of intelligence as a human. Unlike previous experiments, Banban is obedient and willing to cooperate with the staff. Does not attack children in kindergarten, but he is confused by the circumstances that he is an experiment. After taking the elevator, we find ourselves in a medical area where experiments were conducted, apparently in an attempt to create Captain Fiddles. But all attempts were unsuccessful. Therefore, the lifeless bodies are scattered in different rooms. In one of the rooms there is a report in which it is written that this is a call for help and a request to stop this madness. That all these experiments are accompanied by excruciating pain. That it is impossible even to imagine that these creatures were near children. Please come here and see everything with your own eyes, as well as close these terrible experiments of an unnamed corporation. If we scan the QR code in the report, we will see the words. They're not alive, it can't be. To go further, we have to take a syringe and extract DNA from each failed experiment. But we face a problem because one of the experiments turns out to be alive. We point the drone at his eye and quickly take the DNA. Now everything is collected, and we fill the flask with the extracted liquid to open the safe, in which there is a rocket, which we use on a cannon conveniently located opposite the revived creature. We hit him in the eye and he crawls away into the void. Now we can go into the room that he was blocking with his hand. There we find a key card with which we exit the medical area. A huge creature with a distorted face appeared outside, but apparently it is harmless since it does not attack us. Now we can go to the testing area where we find a new report on experiment number 10 called Bird. It was carried out by crossing the DNA of a flamingo bird with a gavanium. This is how the sawdust bird was created, which we have already met. The report states that initially she was aggressive, but now she shows a protective maternal instinct for people of small stature, with a high voice and childish character traits. To all others, it is also extremely aggressive and can lead to death due to its sharp beak and large size. This information about the sawdust bird will be useful to us in the future. Going further, we find ourselves in a long corridor, at the end of which a door opens, and we see eyes in the dark. It's a sawdust bird that's running right at us. We run away and hear a voice calling us to come into the room faster. It saves us from being chased, but we fall into a trap. We met with Banbolina, whom we saw in the drawing of the family earlier. She conducts classes, but instead of living children, she uses basketballs, watering cans, and Skittles. We are put to unpopular students, in our case it's watering cans. Bombolina warns us that we will suffer for the wrong answer. She tells us that here she is studying how to properly catch people and extract human brains for food. Using the recorded answers to the dictaphone lying on the tables, we answer all her questions correctly. Then she gets distracted by the sound and walks away to see what happened. We'll use this chance to escape, and we are succeeding. Along the way, we see how small birds from past experiments look at us before creating a sawdust bird. We see the sawdust bird standing behind the door, and after picking up the key card, we do not dare to open the door right away. Because we remember that she has developed a strong maternal instinct. We catch all the chicks and put them in a special circle. Then we open the door and hide. The sawdust bird immediately runs to the chicks, and we run into the door. We find ourselves back in a long corridor, where a slow Celine is waiting for us. She only attacks us if we move when she's looking straight. If she's not looking, we can run. So we hide from her in one of the doors. We get into a room in the form of a beach, where we collect seashells and put them in the Stinger Flynn's chest to open the safe, where we take the key card. We activate the guns and go through the puzzle for attentiveness. After that, the observation room opens, where we find a new key card and a new report, which says about the effects of gavanium. That this substance is identical to the functions of blood, but has a strange physical effect, in the form of the appearance of veins through which it flows, and thereby increases the size of the one on whom it is used. This has no negative effect, except for the risk of looking unpleasant for children. For example, we saw such veins all over Jumbo Josh's body. And it also explains its huge growth. Scanning the code, we will see the words, "There is no such thing as an ideal kindergarten." If we take a rocket from the completed puzzle and return to the medical area and launch it into the cannon, then the shot will turn on the light in the room where there was an unsuccessful experiment earlier. There we will find a red key card. Now we need to go back to the communication room and open the previously inaccessible door. In this room, there are 3 notes and a diagram for the 5th type of experiment on a whiteboard. That the 3rd experiment relates to the voice, and the 6th experiment relates to the heart to maintain life. Another board shows that 56 attempts have been made, of which Stinger Flynn, Bonbolina, Banban, Mr. Fiddles, and Sawdust Bird are approved. Jumbo Josh and Slow Selena are under consideration. A Nap Nap and Sheriff Toddster are not considered. In the first note addressed to Adam Usman, a plain ticket, which we found earlier, it is written that he was refused objections about restrictions on conducting experiments, as there are not enough resources, such as Givanium. It is also indicated that some customers are upset that promises are not fulfilled, and they are threatened with court, and also that Givanium is delivered in limited quantities by friends from the South, and a request to prepare more copies for the upcoming Bring a Friend Day. Apparently, this hints to us that all the terrible events occurred on the day of Bring a Friend. In another note, also addressed to Usman, it is written that apparently his work colleague found out about the restrictions, and suggests to him that Zolphius should remain secret until no one knows about him. And looking ahead a little, Zolphius is the same huge monster with a face, and apparently he is an unsuccessful experiment that Usman and his colleague are hiding, and an explanation of why the characters are hung on the board, since it is proposed to abandon the frog spider. From a spider, because it will frighten children. From the sheriff, because there is no villain, there is no point in the sheriff. And a work colleague believes that it is necessary to choose between Jumbo Josh and Slow Celine. But he believes that the snail will not become a favorite of children, and mentions that they were allowed to draw them on the wall, so that they would be remembered. The third note says that everything is very bad, and Usman's colleague found that in the ballroom where we were escaping from the Sawdust Bird. The architecture is unstable, and it is surprising that it has not collapsed yet, and barely holds the children who have enrolled in kindergarten. And tomorrow, apparently, it's about the day Bring a Friend. There will be twice as many children, and they will fail. A terrible thing will happen. Remember the audio tape where the children laughed at first, and then as if something had happened. This was the sound of the floor falling, as the notes warn. It is suggested to escape as soon as possible before a catastrophe occurs. And we need to forget about everything that they created and did here. And in the end, please urgently pack your things. Apparently, Usman's colleague was in Everly Mason. A plane ticket that we also found earlier. It is unknown whether they managed to escape, as the tickets were left in the kindergarten. Returning to the long corridor, we open the entrance to a new room, where we find a note from one of the children, in which it is written, "Dear Mommy, I'm fine and Claire's fine. A cute jellyfish saved us from a big bird and an evil red man. We're going to Medusa's house. In front of us are huge platforms, jumping on which we find a new videotape showing the process of creating a new creature, described in the reports. Jumping on the platforms to the very top, we find a new report, which also talks about a bird about a saw, whose eyes fill with blood. If she sees that someone threatens the chicks we have previously seen, or a person of low stature and possessing childish qualities, and becomes very aggressive. If we scan the code, we will see the words "Don't trust Medusa." Making our way deeper, we find ourselves in a room with a birthday cake, and around us are doors with kindergarten characters. Mr. Bant goes up in the elevator and starts talking to us. That he knows that we have come in search of our child. But he is also engaged in trying to save the children. But the children are with someone deep in the abyss, someone who is much stronger than us and the Banban. The conversation is interrupted, and Banban asks us to run away as soon as possible, as we are attacked by Yamba Josh and Bombolina. We are trying to escape when suddenly Yamba Josh grabs the Bombolini by mistake and drags it away. And the key card falls, which allows us to pass on. If we go back, we'll see a Nap Nap spider watching us. We enter the door and get into the elevator, which plunges us deeper into the abyss. It says on the wall, "Whatever you do, don't go down." And from above, a Slow Celine looks at us threateningly. The elevator takes us to the research area, where, near the information kiosk, we again hear the Banban on the speakerphone. He is surprised that we managed to survive and tells us that he is forced to stay away from us. Because due to the instability of his body, he is forced to suppress cruel instincts that can get the better of him. He says that we are on the lowest floor, where someone else lives, and the floors below have long been closed and abandoned. And about where to look for children, he says that he does not know where they are, but he knows someone who knows. And he says that we need to go to the water sector, where he lives. Nearby, we see a new note in which one of the employees wrote that he went to the toilet, and when he returned, everyone disappeared. And a huge bird was walking around. He is afraid that he will not be able to remain calm, and that this is not how he imagined his death. On one of the walls, we see a new painted character, Queen Bouncelia, and her slogan, "Jump as you like, but do not draw conclusions." And the creatures in her belly bag say, "Do your homework and be kind if you don't want to come to us." We go into the recreation room, where we collect the scattered markers and get a key card in return. On one table, there is a note from a child, in which it is written, "Dear mother, the kind jellyfish is very strong. He takes care of everyone here. But Miss Mason hates him, and I don't understand why." Heading to the platform, we notice the spider Nobnaba, which is still chasing us. Having activated the platform, we are heading to the water sector. Going inside, we find a new report stating that the Stinger Flynn jellyfish was created from human DNA, jellyfish, and givanium. The staff also carried out a modification of the givanium, which allowed to accelerate brain activity in just one day, which made it possible to achieve the maximum speed of learning Stinger Flynn. If you scan the QR code, a page opens on the internet with a dark image of a slow Celine and a barely noticeable number 2. After breaking the glass with a drone, we get a new key card and go into the room where Stinger Flynn sleeps. There was supposed to be a new videotape here, but it was cut out of the game, in which we are shown Bombolina sitting in an isolated room. We wake him up, and he immediately tells us to leave this place and erase it from our memory. And in return, he promises us that tomorrow will be a better day. Stinger Flynn hypnotizes us, and we get into his mind. We find ourselves on the shore, where there is a car Stinger Flynn and Zolphius. Stinger Flynn tells us that this is his refuge from everything that is happening in the abyss of the Banban kindergarten. Unlike a real jellyfish, he has never felt water, has never been outside of kindergarten. And he adds that it is in this that the children should help him and release him. But he promises that no one will get hurt. As for the surviving adults, he promises to leave one alive so that he releases the children safely, and that he also delivers him to the surface. Suddenly, we get into the body of Stinger Flynn and experience a flashback in which we see the evil side of Banban, who says that he would eat his organs, but the jellyfish do not have them. Driving a Stinger Flynn, we escape from the beach room and go out into a long corridor, where we are met by a slow Celine, who says that we need to hide. They are approaching, which hints to us that we see a flashback of the moment when the day began to bring a friend, and the guards are trying to stop the characters out of control. When we wake up, we find ourselves in Sheriff Toadster's room. We collect 10 buckets, which were called criminals, and pass the tests with jumps. Instead, the door opens. In the boss's room, we activate the button and get access to a new videotape on which the toad jumps around the holding cell. As we can already understand, apparently this toad was injected with givanium, and so the Sheriff Toaster was created. On one of the tables, there is a report in which we learn new details about Anban, that he became unstable and periodically went crazy, constantly whispering to the pancreatic Ogivanium in Everly and Usmani. Apparently Banban began to feel hatred for its creators. After going through the door, we find ourselves back in the water sector. Banban stops us on the speakerphone and says that we have to deal with the spider Nabnab, and he has an idea how to do it. He asks us to go to the medical sector, where we are going. At the entrance, we find a new report about Anban, that he was given a modified givanium solution, which should weaken his brain activity and make him obedient. But everything went wrong, and primitive instincts awoke in Banban, namely the desire to eat, as we already know. The organs of living beings. In the medical sector, we see an inanimate copy of Nabnab, but female and black, which was nicknamed Nabnalina. Our task is to perform the operation and revive it by creating an ideal givanium solution. And in theory, it should distract Nabnab so that he loses interest in us. After a successful operation, a safe opens in which there is an audio floppy disk. We return to the water sector and turn on the floppy disk on the loudspeaker. The sound produced attracts Nabnab and Nabnalina, and Banban tells us over the speakerphone that at last his friend Napnap has stopped being lonely. But suddenly, we hear a loud sound and see Nabnalina crawling alone to her room. Approaching the platform, Stinger Flynn appears, who says that we should be handed over to one of his old friends. And he hypnotizes us again, and we get into a dream in which we are driving in a car through the desert, and the bank, Captain Fiddles, the Sawdust Bird, and Stinger Flynn himself are sitting with us. There is a conflict in the car, and Stinger Flynn gets distracted, which is why we get into a car accident. We are transported into the body of a Stinger Flynn in a long corridor from the past flashback. We reach the end of the corridor, and in the room, we see a huge amount of givanium, which suggests that Stinger Flynn himself absorbed givanium and thus received hypnotic abilities. We regain consciousness and find ourselves in a room with Bobolina and Spider Nabnab. Bobolina tells us that Jumbo Josh keeps her here and goes crazy if something changes in the room when he returns to it. He periodically looks in the window of the room to make sure that everything is in its place. Exploring the rooms, we get to the safe and take the key card, which allows us to escape from Jumbo Josh's room. Bobolina also escapes after us. Along the way, we find a new videotape in which we see a man and a fallen character, similar to one of the versions of Captain Fiddles. Maybe it's Wyverly Mason testing a new creature. Bombolina goes to the elevator where we went down and goes upstairs. We return to the medical sector and open the previously closed door. Inside, we find a note saying that the author of the note is surprised that the management spends money on rooms for practical jokes, which even the employees do not know about, and finds it only when a disaster has happened. And he thinks that maybe a catastrophe is also a hoax, like this room. There are 6 buttons in this room that we have to press. The order of clicking becomes clear even if you scan all the QR codes on the reports. And using the silhouettes of the characters and the number in the picture, we select the correct sequence. The safe opens, and we find an audio floppy disk and a note. The note says that apparently Stinger Flynn has already told him about the plan to go to the surface. And the employee wonders what will happen. How will he be able to live and where? What kind of government would allow such a monster to be kept? And that he didn't even see what he was capable of if he was scared or angry, that he was playing with other monsters like toys. And what will happen to people? And that he's proud of our wallpaper. Apparently, this note was left by Adam Usman for Beverly Mason, which confirms that they are probably still alive. And are here as one of the candidates who will remain alive to save the children and bring Flynn's stinger to the surface. Returning to the water sector, we activate the audio diskette and go to the platform, where we see Zolphius, who tells us "I'm sorry" in Spanish. We are heading to the progressive sector, where we come across a report that says that Stingerfy communicates with his human DNA donor, and he is aware of himself and his existence. But he is experiencing some pain due to the growth of the body and pulsating veins. In one of the doors, we see a chick standing at the door, and on the right, there is a new videotape, in which we see how the Banban is affected by a modified Givanium solution, which we read about in the report earlier. In the main room, we solve a puzzle and get access to a strange sound device called Mr. Kibo Man, with the slogan "Be yourself, whatever it takes, unlike me." In order to use it, we need to put 2 festive hats on it. Going further, we find a report in which it is written that Stinger Flynn has become obedient, but shows aggression if his question remains unanswered. But this experiment is already considered promising, and they think that it will be ready for the upcoming Bring a Friend Day. Behind the next door, we are met by a certain creature named Temataki and what attacks. A failed experiment of combining a turtle and a chameleon, which we will learn more about later. We start fighting him and win. He falls into the abyss, and we pick up 2 caps for Mr. Keboman. And in the corner, we find a picture depicting Zolphius. There are attacks and what attacks and a character unknown to us. When we return, we activate Mr. Keboman and move him to the door opposite the safe. Then we activate, and the safe opens, in which we take a new key card. We need to go back to the water sector and enter a previously closed door, where we get into a secret room and see an image of an attack there and then an attack on the wall. There's an attack slogan, "We carry our house wherever we go, it's worth it." And what has the slogan, "Compliance with safety regulations saves lives. Practice safety everywhere." On the table, we find a report on Givanium. If the subject receives too many types of DNA, he becomes overwhelmed, which leads to one particular type of DNA becoming a priority in the body, which leads to wild or animal behavior, as happened with the Banban. Returning to Mr. Key Bobman, we push him further to the chick and activate the sound. The chick runs away, we catch it, and one of the copies of the Epila bird runs after us. Jumping on her back, we manage to straddle her. Running inside, we see Flynn's stinger, which captured the Banban, and he tells us that he guessed that someone was helping us, but assures us that the purpose of the Banban was not to help, but to take and eat organs from children, including us. An evil version of the Banban awakens, and he throws it at us. We run away on horseback, but we get into a dead end. We were cornered, but suddenly Jumbo Josh appears out of the darkness and attacks Banban. The bird takes us to a safe place, and from above we see how Stinger Flynn stops the fight, but Jumbo Josh attacks Fry's stinger now. And we run away and run into the open door with an elevator and the inscription "Find the kingdom, find the sheriff. Don't let the Jester find you." The chick runs into the elevator with us, and we begin to descend lower into the abyss. Going down below, as soon as we get out of the elevator and take the chick in our hands, We are chased there by attacks and then attacks, which gets stuck in a narrow passage. A little further on, we find some kind of yellow remote control and try to take it, but it turns out to be a trap, and something is knocked out and begins to drag us away. We wake up in the interrogation room and see Sheriff Todster. He starts interrogating us and we have to answer yes or no. After the interrogation, the sheriff lets us go and asks us to follow him. The sheriff doesn't understand what we're doing so deep inside and says it's not safe here. We come to a new place called the Kingdom. Queen Bouncelia, who calls herself the ruler of the kingdom, lives here, and she is surrounded by barrels of Givanium. And the Sheriff Toaster is the only inhabitant and the only defender of the kingdom. The queen tells us that there are no children here, but she promises to help us return to the upper floors, so that we can continue to search for them. But the elevator is broken, and she offers to fix it, but for this we need to find 3 parts that will fix the elevator. These details are hidden in different parts of the kingdom, which can be reached using the old transfer station. We also find a note from one of the children, which says, "Dear Mom, we just had a cool party." On the way to the station, the sheriff tells us about a certain Jester, who set himself the goal of making the queen laugh. But there is a problem. If the queen laughs, unknown aggressive creatures that are in her belly bag will be released. Along the way, we also find a report dedicated to the sheriff, which says that he was created from a mixture of human DNA, toad and Givanium. He was shown films, cartoons, and westerns every day, in which the main role was played by a real sheriff of the city who fought crime. But everything went wrong, and Sheriff Todster began to consider all people criminals and began to protect the created characters. His methods of catching people became very cruel, and a person simply could not survive. Therefore, it was decided to stop the experiments and lock the sheriff in the depths of the abyss and forget about his existence. We also find another report dedicated to the Queen of Bouncelia. It was created by crossing the DNA of a human, kangaroo, and Givanium. She considered it a calm experiment, but aggressive creatures began to appear in her bag. She was transferred to the lower floors for safety and protection, in case these creatures get out of her bag. She was not personally considered a threat because of her kind nature and manner of communication. She had a scepter, which had magical properties, and was seized by scientists for study, and a note from one of the employees, in which he writes that he was abandoned by colleagues when they ran away like cowards. He doesn't understand what kind of creature it was with a huge floating face, and that someone is approaching him, constantly giggling. Together with the sheriff, we arrive at the station, where we immediately notice a drawing on the wall. This character is a bitter giggle, but we immediately realize that this is Jester, whom the sheriff told us about earlier. And his slogan is nothing as valuable as a smile. Tell a joke while you go. We go into a side room and are locked in the dark. Inside, we come face to face with Jester, who really wants to eat and is heading towards us. The door opens and the sheriff saves us. We go into a room with ventilation, where a spider is hiding and waiting for us to get closer. But we have a chick with us, which starts screaming if we approach the place where Nap hid. Thanks to this, we calmly pass on to the administration room, where we find the first part for repairing the elevator. On the way back, we find a videotape of Bombolina eating the cake we saw earlier. Returning to the queen, she tells us that the kingdom's population now consists of 5 creatures. While we were away, someone came to her in a serious condition, and she placed him in the infirmary. In the infirmary, we find Banban, who survived a fight with Jumbo Josh. Banban apologizes to us and says that he was out of control at that moment, and he wants to make amends. Help us find parts to fix the elevator. And in another room, we meet Flynn Stinger, who wants to show us something, and takes us into dreams, where we see all the characters sitting by the wreckage of a car. And suddenly there is a terrible sound that belongs to the monster Choo Choo Charles from another game. Like a small Easter egg added to the game, and for the friendship between the developers. The dream ends and we wake up. In the room where Stinger Flynn is located, we find a new videotape on which Sheriff Todster and Jester knelt in front of the Queen. We are heading to the next station, and a Banban is already waiting for us at the transport, who promised to help us find details. Banban tells us who he really is. It turns out that Banban is Adam Usman, and he regrets that he did not have time to put an end to these experiments before they got out of control. He says that his colleagues turned away from him and stopped communicating with him, looked at him as a monster. From this dialogue, we can understand that the DNA of the person who received the Banban belonged to Adam Usman, and now he considers himself to be him. We get off at the station and see Yamba Josh, who falls into the trap left by the sheriff. A little further on, we discover a laboratory containing many unsuccessful copies of Jester. Banban took Mr. Keboman with him, and wants to activate him to call a friend, but suddenly a spider jumps out and steals the Keboman. We give chase and drive Nab into a corner where the Banban takes an aggressive form and starts fighting with the spider. As a result, Banban manages to stifle aggression in himself and begin to control it. But he is now depressed and asks us to continue on our own. We pick up a part for the elevator, and on the way back, we notice Zulfius. Apparently this was the friend that Banban wanted to call. When we return, we see that many familiar characters have already been caught in the infirmary. To get the last detail, we go to the station where the exercise sector is located, where we encounter Jester, who lures us into a trap and sets an unprecedented character on us, whose name is Kitasaurus, and his slogan meows to friends, roars to enemies. We defeat the Kitasaur and get to the last part for the elevator. In this room, we also find a note where Usman addresses Everly Mason and writes that he is forced to leave notes because he constantly feels under surveillance. He collected data from all the children in kindergarten and marked his preferred donors on the sheet, and offers to do the same in Everly and choose from those that both liked. So now we know that DNA was taken not only from adults, but also from children. Jester locks us in a room and says he's going to make the queen laugh and runs away. We manage to get out and we run after him to the kingdom, but it's too late. Jester is about to make the queen laugh and the monsters from her belly bag break free. Due to an aftershock, the chick falls into a canister of Skivonium and turns the chick into a huge scary bird. She attacks Kitasaurus, who has also come to the kingdom. While not fighting, Jester does not miss the opportunity to tell a joke to the queen, who considers the joke so bad that it makes it funny. She starts laughing, and the monsters from the bag start getting out of her. The sheriff sees this and asks us to run faster to the elevator. Jester tries to stop us, but we get there faster and leave in the elevator, together with the sheriff and the Stinger Flynn, which the sheriff says we will really need in the future. But we are not going up as planned, but deeper into the abyss to find the scepter of the queen. Because only he can stop this madness. We can scan the QR codes of all reports and get a set of letters and symbols, connecting which will lead us to a hidden video on YouTube. Apparently, one of the freed monsters from the queen is addressing us. And then there is the strangeness of numbering the parts of the Garten of Banban game. So the sequel was supposed to be in the 5th part of the game, but it never came out, and the 6th part of the game came out right away, in which the story continued. There are rumors that the 5th part should show us the background of all the events, apparently on behalf of Adam Usman, show what happened on the day at the site of a friend. But the 5th part still does not exist. We descend to a new floor and pass into a huge, poorly lit room where, according to the sheriff, monsters have already hidden in the shadows, which the queen has freed. We need to stay in the light so they don't catch us. On the way to the door where the scepter is located, the sheriff tells us that initially he was locked in this room by the same people as us, that he lived here for many cold days and nights, which he does not want to remember. We reach the door, and the sheriff tells us that it can only be opened by activating the switches in the 4 sectors that are in this room. And we see that one light bulb is already on. But to get to them, we have to find the source of the lighting. We notice a room that is located above us and jump up the pipes to get there. It contains searchlights that we can attach to our drone and thereby illuminate our way. We take them, and a sudden unknown creature comes out of the wall and attacks us, but does not kill us. Taking the searchlights, we go down from this room. We see the sheriff talking to Bombolina, who managed to escape from the kingdom and get to us. The sheriff addresses her by constantly inserting the word Miss, which presumably means that Bombolina was created from Miss Mason's DNA, which also justifies her penchant for raising children. With the help of a drone, we can now navigate in the dark by lighting our way. When we get to the nearest button, we activate the light bulb, which opens us a safe way back when we need to go back. We also find a note from one of the children, which says, "Dear Mother, we are not going to talk to the face, so Miss Mason ordered." We get to the familiarization sector. Apparently staff meetings were held here. We find a videotape on which there are attacks and what attacks are in an isolated room. We also find a report stating that the scepter appeared in the Queen's possession for unknown reasons, and she refuses to tell where she got it from. For this, she is placed on the lower floors. We find a blue key card and open the door, behind which is Jester. He doesn't attack us, but on the contrary, he realized his mistake and wants to help us fix everything. Suddenly, the presentation starts and the lights turn off. Jester asks us to hide in this room with him. Someone behind the door pretends to be a Banban and asks us to open the door for him, But Jester clearly made it clear to us that this is not a Banban. After a while, the unknown person leaves, and we activate the button to open the door at the scepter. Jester returns with us, but the sheriff is very unhappy to see him and believes that we have become a traitor. Since we have teamed up with Jester, suddenly, an unknown monster in the form of a slug or a leech attacks the Bombolini standing next to it and drags it into the darkness. The sheriff rushes after her into the darkness. Jester runs up to the door out of fear, where Stinger Flynn, whom we took with us earlier, has already reached. They stay in this safe zone, and we go to the next sector to activate the next button. We get to the potential sector, and at the entrance, we immediately meet two parts of one of the copies of Jester, who have a conflict because one of the parts does not want to connect with the other. We find a videotape on which the slow Celine becomes very fast. Having solved a small puzzle, a Banban will appear in front of us who is glad that we are still alive and wants to help us. We go with him to a new room where we solve another simple puzzle to open a small booth. We open it and a little leech runs out and hides in the bushes. We find an iron stick in the bushes and pick it up. Banban draws our attention to the fact that someone has appeared here and we see a terrible toothy monster. We run into the booth and try to open the safe. And at this moment, the monster attacks Banban and tells us that we are his savior. He warned us to stay away. Apparently, he addressed us in a secret video on YouTube. This confirms that these new monsters are the ones who got out of the Queen's bag. Jester attacks the monsters and we leave the booth, taking the key card. We see that Jester's Banbans are immobilized and we can't help in any way. We reach the closed door and open it with a key card and get into the power supply zone. Jester, who has woken up, joins us and asks where a certain Sir Dadu has run off to. Apparently, this is the name of the monster that attacked him. In this room, we find a report about the Knobnobby spider, which escaped and claimed the lives of more than 20 employees. The report suggests taking action to capture Nabnab by luring him into a trap. We need to get into the room with the scepter button, but in order to do this, Jester must fix the mechanism. By fighting off monsters together, we manage to do it. Going into the room, we notice another report about a certain being called a surgeon. It is created from human DNA and givanium. The report says that it is unacceptable for children, as it has a set of mechanical hands that are dangerous for children. We activate the scepter button and return to the safe zone. Kiddosaurus, Nabnab Spider, and Banban have already appeared there. Stinger Flynn wants to talk to us and in the dialogue blames us for all his problems. Then he plunges us into a dream where we see the same group of characters waiting for the bus at the bus stop. Stinger Flynn tells Banban that they need to get to the beach. One bus suddenly kidnaps Mr. Fiddles, another bus knocks down the spider Nabnab, and the third bus crashes into a stop. We regain consciousness and approach Jester, who gives us a new key card and informs us that the Banban has already gone to the last button. Along the way, we find a new videotape showing a sawdust bird. In the last room, we open the gate with the help of a drone and get into the operating room, where two strange creatures are talking about the fact that their father has disappeared somewhere. Apparently the same surgeon we read about in the report. We collect 8 lollipops and the door opens, behind which we see a report saying that many experiments have learned that givanium has regenerative properties. And he told them about this alleged experiment called the surgeon. In other words, all experiments now know about the possibilities of givanium. We fall into the void and find ourselves in a large room with trees. And we see a Banban standing on the bridge, which warns us about the bird. This is the mutated chick after falling into a barrel with givanium. Dodging the bird's attack, we manage to connect power to the battery standing on the trees on which the bird falls. And the current charge cuts it down. Suddenly, the walls move apart, and there is the last button of the scepter. We activate it and try to get out of here. Going through a small puzzle in the opened room, we select a key card and find a report about the spider. He will reveal that his aggression has decreased by 20%. But he still shows hectic behavior, and it was also found out that this experiment has the lowest level of intelligence. We get to the safe zone, and before opening the door to the scepter, we climb up into the room where we took the spotlights, and open the previously closed safe inside, in which we take a new key card. Then we return to the same sector where we were before and open the previously closed door. Inside we find a drawing of Sir Dadu, and his slogan growing up is the realization that leeches come in different shapes and sizes. There are erased forms 3 and 4 on the board that we don't know anything about. and a report on the table in which it is written that experiments such as the surgeon, the sheriff, the queen, and to unknown to us, conceived an evil plan, and that from now on a group of employees will be sent every 2 weeks to them on the lower floors, to make sure that they have not started to implement their plan. From this report, we can understand that the employees knew that the creatures were up to something, but did not know what. And apparently on the day they saw a friend, their plan was implemented. Returning to the door of the scepter, we go inside and open the chest in which the scepter lies. But everyone notices that one detail is missing from the scepter, namely the heart in the center of the scepter, which gives it magical properties. Suddenly, Sir Dadu bursts in and wants to steal the scepter. Banban stabs the spider Nanaba with Givanium, and he turns into a huge monster and attacks Sir Dadu. Jester shouts that we have to run, and we run away with Banban, leaving the scepter in the chest. Jester suddenly informs us that he doesn't want to leave this floor because there are leeches in the dark laughing at his jokes. We leave Jester and run to the elevator. Having reached it, an army of monsters appears in front of us, which apparently turns Sir Dadu. Banban shouts to us that we have to find a surgeon. The elevator goes down. A Banban attacks them alone, so that we can have time to go down. We get into a room, take a step out of the elevator, and from above there falls attacks, and then attacks destroying the elevator. In the room, we see a screen, launching which we are shown instructions on how to behave with the Nab and the surgeon, about all security measures for the staff. As we remember, a group of employees went to the lower floors to check whether the creatures had started their evil plan. After the briefing, we are given a key card, and we go into a new room, where we activate the power for the next door. But we notice a spider on the ceiling. We find scotch tape and a lighter. We roll a barrel with Givanium, stick it to a spinning platform, set it on fire, and, having scrolled the platform under the Nabnaline, it jumps down to the barrel and explodes it to the abyss, where it flies away. Now we can open the door and move on. Getting into the corridor, we follow the inscription, "Go and you will see," and reach a dark room, where green creatures similar to aliens are hanging. We see the silhouette of a surgeon, but someone attacks us, and we lose consciousness. We come to our senses in the operating room, where the surgeon lets us know that he is disgusted with people and their limitations. He asks one of the assistants to bring him scissors, and then says that it's lucky to become a participant in his operation. We can understand that these green creatures were created by the surgeon through his own experiments with Givanium, and apparently with his DNA, the same open mouth, big eyes, but with a low mind. The assistant brings not scissors, but a hammer, and the surgeon is furious, shouting that the Givanium is not lying on the road. We pass out and wake up again, but the surgeon is no longer in the operating room. We take the key card and try to get out, but the only passage is through the door, where the surgeon performs surgery on the assistant. We find a lollipop and a room where there is a note in which the surgeon wrote that he was proud of himself, because he was able to create new green creatures that he calls his children, and that he conceived a clever plan. Immediately we take a hammer with which we remove the boards of closed doors, give a lollipop to one of the green creatures, and get a rope that we pull between the doors. After opening the door to the surgeon, he immediately tries to attack us, but falls into our trap, where a big leech pounces on him. And the surgeon asks for our help, and in return he will not touch us. We rescue the surgeon, and he takes us to his office, where we see the missing part of the scepter, and on the blackboard, there is a list of whom Sir Dadu has already turned, and who has not yet. The surgeon updates our remote control from the drone, and now we can control it through the terminal. He also tells us that we have to help him, because the missing part of the scepter should not fall into the hands of Sir Dadu, because he will destroy all creatures. The surgeon believes that we need a strong ally, namely Jumbo Josh, who cannot be converted because of his mind, and who, with his strength, can create a strong resistance to Sir Dadad's army. And according to his data, the first part of the scepter is already in the hands of Sir Dadu, because we left it before we escaped. Our task now is to find Jumbo Josh. He also says that then we get to a city that is well lit, and therefore protected from the attack of mischievous people. The same leeches that we often meet after the Queen's laughter. We find a report on the table that says that the surgeon has been used as an assistant for the experiment, but tests on motor skills are required. The surgeon tells us that Sir Dadu was initially good, but the way the staff treated him made him try to destroy them. Now he is not only behind the staff, but also behind those who betrayed him among the creatures. He also says that the magical properties of the scepter are his handiwork, that the surgeon somehow managed to introduce the function of influencing the brain into the scepter. When the scepter touches the body, it transfers the genetic code of the owner to the brain. And thus, the one who wields the scepter can give commands to those whom he touched. We go out and head to the city, where we see at the beginning a huge statue of a surgeon and a report lying next to it, which says that the surgeon has created a new kind of creatures, and that they are all very similar and act almost the same. When asked why he created them, the surgeon replied that he had been practicing and wanted to become better at his work. Entering the city, we see that Zolphius towers over it. The trash cans have green creatures dancing. There is a bar, a restaurant, a motel, a theater, and a tool shop. One of the residents draws us Josh's jumbo so we can ask everyone. At the bar, we are informed that someone wants to talk to us. And we also find a report in which Mr. Fiddles was created from the DNA of the monkey Marica and Gavanium. He was then taken to Bonbolini to create a maternal relationship between them. The experiment is going well. It turns out that Sheriff Toddster wanted to talk to us. Next to him is a note in which it is written about Zolphius that he is growing and getting louder, thereby he can be detected. And as we remember, Zolphius was hidden as an unsuccessful experiment. The sheriff says that he was unable to save Miss Mason, thereby finally confirming that the Bombolini was made from the DNA of Verley Mason. He says he knows a local who will give us information from Jumbo Josh and sends us to his motel. We find him there, but he won't give us the information until we calm down the screaming neighbor. In one of the rooms of the motel, we find a report on the slow Celine, in which it is written that the staff cannot explain the fact of the snail's disappearance, and where did she get such a fast speed that helped to avoid. As we saw earlier on the videotape, an evil version of Jester appears in front of us in the neighbor's room, from which we begin to run away, and at some point, we are saved by the sheriff, who touches Jester too much, who eventually dies. And the sheriff asks us to leave. Nearby, we find a report that says that the green creatures created by the surgeon do not listen to people, follow orders only from the surgeon, and allow themselves to swear at people. We return to the motel, where the resident offers to look in the theater and gives us a key card to get there. Before entering the theater, we notice a note from one of the missing children, which says, "Dear mother, where are you? I miss you. The jellyfish is gone, everyone is scared." And next to him is Stinger Flynn, who tells us that he is afraid that mischievous people will be able to find where he hid the children. But he adds that we are to blame for this. And according to tradition, he wants to show us new dreams in which all the characters fly to the beach in the same company. But there is a conflict and they fall out of the plane. We regain consciousness and get a ticket to the theater. Inside we see a lot of posters authored by a certain brushist, about whom we do not know anything yet. We also find a report in which employees became aware of the attack on the northwest wing on the lower floors, and it was decided to send a surgeon to the lower floor to fix the problems. In the theater hall, we meet one of the residents of the city, who has a collar that catches the signal of finding Jumbo Josh. They give it to us in return for help with lighting the theater hall. The signal from the collar directs us to the tool shop, but we don't have a key card that will open it. Next to the entrance to the store, we see a training area, once in which we have to pass the exam of the node version of the Banbolina. We manage to pass it, and we get a key card for the store. In the tool shop, we meet an aggressive creature, similar to the most unsuccessful experiment made by a surgeon. After running away from him, and going through the puzzles in different rooms of the store, we get to the roof, where we see a green substance, apparently left by Jumbo Josh, a sample of which we take with us. There we also find a report stating that Captain Fiddles has completely passed the test on ordinary children, and aroused maximum interest in children, which is why it is now recommended for constant interaction with children in kindergarten. A surgeon is already waiting for us at the exit of the store, to whom we give a sample of Jumbo Josh's green substance, to which the surgeon assumes that he was injured by someone and adds that with the help of a sample, we can lure Jumbo Josh to where we need to, slightly changing the flavor of the sample we collected. He prepares a trap by exposing the missing piece of the scepter at the entrance to the city. And we go to his laboratory, where we can now open a previously inaccessible safe, in which we take a key card. Then return to the tool shop and find a closed door that we can now open. And inside, we see the brushista drawing and its slogan, "Life as a canvas, one mistake and everything is ruined." On the boards, we see a scepter and an immunity sheet, and also find a report on the table of a slow Celine, in which we learn that human DNA was added to her, which allowed her to learn to speak, but she began to experience severe pain in her body, which led to aggressive actions. It is added that pain in the body is present in almost all experiments conducted. We return to the surgeon, who has already prepared everything, and Sir Dadu appears, who snatches the missing part of the scepter, and summons his entire army. It seems we lost, but suddenly Jumbo Josh appears, and hangs a cradle to everyone who is for Sir Dada. Due to Jumbo's low intelligence, Josh grabs the scepter and tries to eat it, which causes a huge explosion and destroys the scepter. We regain consciousness in the surgeon's room, and Stinger Flynn is lying next to us. The surgeon says it's even good that the scepter has been destroyed, because no one has the right to wield such power. But Stinger Flynn intervenes in conversations and draws our attention to the fact that in the drawing on the wall, Banban seems to be glued to someone. We tear off the drawing of Banban and see a character unknown to us. The surgeon knocks us out, saying that we did it in vain. This is how the history of the Garten of Banban ends at the moment. We do not know information about many of the characters and how they will affect the plot in the future. So far, we have a teaser of the 8th part of the game, in which Banban is alive, but crippled and looks at a new character, and says it's been a long time. Well, here is such a complicated story, which I hope has become more understandable for you. Subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and see you in the new video.